Following on from our last video about the upper control arms and the function they play in alignment, we're now turning our attention to the back of the car. Most people kind of think that the back of the car, it's diffs, it's some arms, it's set and forget, but that's not the case. In coil sprung cars, there's a device called a panhard rod which links the diff to the body. And what happens is, as the car is lifted or lowered, depending on your load, the panhard rod's fixed on the body and it moves the body and the diff away from each other. And what happens when the diff and body move away is that the diff actually tilts a little bit, and that changes what we call the thrust angle or alignment angle in the car. And this manifests itself when you're driving, as the car may want to go slightly in a different direction, particularly under power. So if you're towing or you've got a lot of power in the car, you accelerate very quickly, the diff itself can move a little bit and you'll find the car wanting to change lanes. And you'll find yourself perhaps unconsciously correcting for it because you are expecting it to happen. And we can work out what's happening once we put the car on the aligner, as we've done here today, and we'll show you how this thrust angle, if it's not lined up with the car, can actually make the car drive a little bit funny, and it actually kind of crabs down the road a little bit. And with the panhard rod, we can correct it. You'll see in a lot of cars as well, 79s, early patrols, that kind of thing as well. They also have panhard rods on the front because the front is hanging on with coil springs, and have the big panhard rod there as well, which does the same thing. When we lift the car, often the factory panhard rod's too short, and that kicks the diff across, or actually it pushes the body across. It's the other way around. With an adjustable panhard rod, we can correct for that, put the diffs all back into alignment, and make the car drive straight again. So we put the car on the hoist this morning. Nate's busy fitting it up with the heads to get an initial alignment reading. We'll go underneath and have a look at the panhard rod, how it mounts to the body and the diff, and look at that on the screen as well. And we'll see what we can see from the rear alignment is the thrust angle and how that relates to the rest of the car. In our last video, we looked at the front of the car with the upper control arms, how the caster camber was looking. We didn't look at the bottom or the rear section of the car at all, and today we're going to do that. Let's lift the car, we'll go underneath, have a look at these parts, have a look at the aligning settings, fit the adjustable panhard rod and see how that affects things. And then, because we've changed the rear, we then need to go back and fix the front as well to compensate. But once it's done, I expect the car will drive a bit better. As it is currently, the car, when you're getting on the power, because this car does make quite a lot of power, you can notice the squirming in the rear end. I think it's probably got soft bushes in the rear end from factory as well to help with a bit of NVH, but you can really feel the car squirming under heavy acceleration. Okay, we've got the car on the alignment machine now. Nate's set it all up with the heads, done the setup that he has to do. And now we're looking at the rear end of the car, and you'll think that there's the diff hanging with some upper and lower control arms and what could possibly go wrong. But you can see, because the car is lifted, everything is not exactly square. There's some rear toe angle on the car. The camber's not much we can do about that, but because the car is lifted and it is positively located by some control arms, upper and lower, which are not square, they're at an angle. As the car's lifted and it's pushed across, the diff actually kicks across as well. And you can see the diff here is kicked across because of the lift that's on the car. And that means we actually have a thrust angle of 0.08 degrees through the car. That means that when the power is going through the diff in the car, it's actually off, coming into the car at an angle. It's slightly off. Now, most cases we don't worry about that because we have the front end to align and we can correct it with the front end, but we do have adjustable panhard rods which can correct for this alignment. As I said, with a few degrees out, the car will actually want to change lanes under heavy acceleration. And by correcting it, we can bring it so it just drives nice and straight again. The thrust angle is obviously height dependent because the panhard rod is fixed to the body. So if you go put a lot of load in, the back of the car is going to compress. That's going to push the diff across a little bit. So what we do, we adjust it for a setting for where the car is at. Ideally, typically loaded for an everyday use. So if you're traveling and you've got a lot of gear in the car, take it into the aligner, get it set where you're at. If you really want the car to handle and behave really well when you've got the caravan on, you might set it slightly one way so that when the load of the caravan comes on, it corrects and becomes zero under full load again. So anyway, let's go. We'll lift the car, put the panhard rod on, we'll just look and see how easy it is. see what we can do to correct these numbers, and then come back and talk about it afterwards. So on here we've got the whole suspension setup. We've also got our Just Auto's Stone Shield for the factory fuel pump, fuel filter up here. And you can also see while we're here, this is the auxiliary fuel filter as well, in line with the factory filter, just to catch more nasties, more water and so on. Looking at the rear diff, the wheels, springs and so on. And this is the Panhard rod. And the Panhard rod, as I said earlier, connects the diff to the body securely. And what happens is, as the suspension goes up and down, this pivots. And of course, because it pivots, it swings on an arc. So as the body of the car moves up and down, either through lifting it permanently or through just the normal working of the suspension, this rod will pivot and it'll swing around. And as it does, because it's fixed, it'll travel in an arc. And that means the body as well, in relation to this point, will move in an arc. The body will go this way, the body will go that way. And as that happens, the other arms under here cause the whole thing to just pivot a little bit. We can see, we'll have a look at the moment on the screen, we pulled the rear wheel out here just so we can get a full shot of this in place, and you can see as we're adjusting what goes on. But even doing so on the screen, it's even changed the thrust angle by another 0.1 of a degree. So pulling that 40 odd kilos of wheel and tyre out has lifted the car slightly, and that has resulted in another alignment change. So quite interesting how sensitive it actually is. So here we have the factory Panhard rod, and this is fresh out of the packet, the RoadSafe APR 031 adjustable rod for the 200 and 300 series. It's obviously still a bit shorter, we do need to wind it out, but you can see it's the same kind of heavy tubular construction, bushes in the end, and reinforced as well on the ends. So we will adjust this to approximate length, get it on, and then make final adjustments. So Nate is winding out to make it longer to bring it better into the centre position. You can see the toe angles are changing, the thrust angles changing as he winds it out. We're going through the final sort of adjustment phase here at the moment. Nate's got a tape measure, he's checking it to ensure that it's evenly, the wheels and tyres are evenly spaced left to right. Then make the final adjustments as he's going. As you can see, it's just giving the car a bit of a shake to make sure that the bushes are all just sort of relaxed. It has changed it again slightly, so now we'll just make the final correction. There we go, the rear toe has corrected. The rear toe, of course, is the setting that we see, which makes it go one way or another. The aim is just to have it even, both sides. And there we go, perfectly in alignment there. Toe, everything, so the thrust angle, perfectly lined straight up the centre of the car. And of course that's very much a static thing, because as the car bounces, as we said, going along the road, it does change slightly, but given that we're in a fairly neutral position right here, a small amount of movement really won't have much effect on what's going on the car. So we switch the display now to the front wheels again. As you can see, we've got a bit of a mixed bag here, and let's go through it and see what we're talking about. about. So we've got our caster and cambers, that's how our wheels are up and down and in and out at the top. Because the car has got very large tyres on it, and with offset wheels, we do run quite a lot of caster here to bring the tyres forward away from the factory mudguard so that it doesn't scrub. So we do run a lot of caster to correct for that. The front camber, roughly even, fairly up and down, a little bit of positive camber, so they're sticking out a little bit at the top. And then the toe angles. Because we've changed the rear, the thrust angle has changed on the rear, we're now seeing that the front toe angles also don't match anymore. So that's what we're going to go ahead and fix now, just so that the wheels are actually pointing straight ahead to now match the rear diff, which is now pointing straight ahead as well. We finished that now. You saw the final figures on the screen after we did the front alignment. We didn't touch the caster camber because they weren't affected by what we've done now, but we've adjusted the toe a little bit. Because the car was originally slightly cocked off to the side as it was driving, it's now been squared up, and therefore we actually need to to square up the front wheels as well, which we've done. We've got our alignment report here showing where we were when we started. So we had a minus 15 degrees thrust angle. It's now come back to 0, which was our target all along. There's still a little bit of camber and toe in the thing. That's how the diff is manufactured. So we're quite happy with how that goes. We changed that front toe from being plus 2.3 and brought it back to 0.5, which is quite nominal. So car will drive straight now. It will drive straight down the road as well, which means that our eyes won't be playing tricks on us. We won't be trying to sit a bit funny on the seat to compensate. When we load up the van, load up to go away, of course we expect as the back of the car drops a little bit, it'll change a little bit, but that's just the nature of the beast. Job done. Look forward to taking it for a test drive, make sure it's all okay. Assuming so, that'll be fine. We're done here for today. Test drive complete. I'm happy the car now feels like it's going straight down the road. Everything's aligned. A side effect of this as well, with our ADAS, Advanced Driver Assist technology, which is all camera-based, radar-based, that works better as well when it's pointing straight down your lane rather than to the next lane. So I expect lane keeping and so on might be just a little bit friendlier as well. So in many cases, as you're lifting the car, it's still operating within its normal range and we can correct for the front. But some vehicles, when they're lifted, they really need this. Patrols, for example, GQ, GU patrols really need it quite badly when they're lifted because they do come up quite tall and the alignment gets quite bad. I guess a lot of us take it for granted that the car drives as it drives. You get a report that comes back from the wheel owner saying, yep, it's all great. But just pay attention to the thrust angle on the rear as well. If you find it's out a couple of degrees because the car's lifted so much, putting an adjustable panhard rod is the way to fix that and can make a significant difference to how calm the car is on the road and even your self-perception for how straight the car is driving down the road. Not to mention, of course, when you are getting onto the power in a situation, overtaking situation, things like that, you're not fighting the wheel either. The car just drives straight. And that's the main advantage of the adjustable panhard rod. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for our next episode in the series, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe below. Check us out, either of our 2 stores, Edwardstown or Mawson Lakes in the north of Adelaide, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.